This conference will.
Okay, can anyone recall what we discussed in the yesterday session?
Dynamic document
Dynamic
property.
property.
Dynamic document property.
Yes,
DDP.
dynamic document property, right? DDP. We will call it as a DDP also. DDP. Name itself, it is saying dynamic document. Okay, document level property. Dynamically, the document is going to be changed. What are the documents is changing dynamically? We are going to be capture those values by using dynamic document property. Okay, and so it is a document level property. We can store each and every document value. Okay, note point. Yesterday, I think I discussed this point. Anyhow, I will repeat this point again. So, for example, by using DDP, we can store. Okay, we can store each and every. Okay, each and every value, I mean id. What are the value you want to store? For example, if you want to store id, you can store each and every id. If you want to store any name field, you can store each and every no name field. If you want to store some xyz field, we can store each and every field value. Okay, field value by using dynamic document property. For example, let's say from the source system, from the source. Okay, from the source, if you are getting, if we are getting from the source, you are getting, we are getting, let's say 10 documents. Okay, in 10 documents, 10 documents. Okay, in this 10 documents, if you want to store some id field, okay, you want to store some id field or name field, by using dynamic document property, we can store each and every document id. Okay, let's say if you want to store some name field. Okay, some name field, if you want to store some name field. Okay, name field, by using dynamic document property, we can store each and every name of that particular document value. Okay, in the document, if you are getting 10 records, okay, if you are splitting that 10 records into 10 records in a single document, if you are getting 10 records, and after splitting the 10 records, each and every field value you are going to be stored, that what are the name we are trying to store, or id or any field, if you want to store, we can store each and every document value, because it is a dynamic document property. Keep it in mind, dynamic document property. Okay, I will tell you, with the example, when we going to use a dynamic document property and when we going to use dynamic process property. But keep it in mind, dynamic document property is a document level property. It is a document level property where we can store each and every document value which are coming from the source. Okay, and they are cannot be persisted and cannot be extended. Okay, and if we are storing that particular value after the branch, we can retrieve those values in a particular branch only. Okay, what I am mean to say, let me log in into our platform. Guys, please focus, and if you are not understanding anything, again and I'm telling, if you are not getting anything, or if you are not understood anything, please raise your hand and ask me the questions. Okay, I'm not telling in perspective of interview or in perspective of anything. In perspective of work related, when you are working with any project, or if you're working with any real time, these properties will play a crucial role in your Boomi career. Okay, please understand, and if you are not getting, or if you are facing any issues, please raise your hand and ask the questions again and again, I'm telling. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now here, now we are using set property shape. Okay, here, and we are using dynamic document property, and we are trying to store dynamic document sorry id. By using dynamic document property, we are storing employee id. And we, if you want to retrieve, if you want, for example, now let's say I want to retrieve this id here. Okay, right, you want, how we can store, how we can retrieve or store. So we have a functions, in the functions we have a properties, right? We have a properties. see here we have a different properties, right? Set dynamic and get a dynamic sorry, the document property. So here you can go, and if you want to go with the process property, dynamic process property, you can go, but we don't have a separate option for the dynamic document property. If you want to get or set dynamic document property, you need to go with the document property. Click on document property, say okay. Now here we have a choose and go to property type, click on dynamic document property. Now here we need to give the naming convention. Again I'm telling, it is a case sensitive. Okay. Properties are case sensitive. Case sensitive. Okay, case sensitive means what are the name we are using to store that value. While retrieving those values, we need to give same naming without any changes. Okay, clear? Okay, we'll do a test so that you will get an idea. What we will do, we'll go, we'll come here. So now this is a set property, right? So now here in this third branch, in third branch we'll try to retrieve those values. What values we stored, we'll try to retrieve those values. Okay, how we can going to be retrieved, now we will see. So here we stored employee id and a name. So let me copy this id, employee id, because so it is a case sensitive. Try to copy, and whenever you want to retrieve those values, copy and paste there. So now here let me try to retrieve that. Now I want to use dynamic document property. Okay, now I will use some ddp id here. I want to retrieve those values. So now here click on, so now I stored one value, I'm trying to set one value. Okay, for this set id dynamic document property, now I want to retrieve whatever the property we stored before in a set property. Now I want to retrieve. So can I go here? Now tell me which property I need to select, which parameter value I need to select. Already I stored dynamic document property values by using set property. So now that particular property value I want to retrieve. So now tell me which parameter type I need to select. Yes,
Profile element
Profile
Document.
element.
why profile element?
Document
See,
property.
because we're
see,
extracting the documents from the previous
yes,
year.
yes, yes, but don't be confused, please understand. Okay, don't be confused. So here what we did here, we are storing dynamic document property. Okay, by with this employee ids are coming from the profile element, right? But what are the ids are which are coming from the profile, we are storing here. Now I want to retrieve this particular id, I mean this particular property. Okay, this particular property, if you want to retrieve this particular property, we need to give this okay, this name as a property type, a parameter type. Okay, you are getting my point. See, already we stored employee id. Okay, we stored employee id which are coming from the profile. Okay, which are coming the profile we stored already by using dynamic document property. Now I want to retrieve what are the ids which are stored in this particular property, I want to retrieve them. So if you want to retrieve those ids, what are the ids we stored in a dynamic document property, if you want to retrieve those ids, we need to give this property name, not this type. Okay, so now here I want to retrieve, right? Okay, I want to retrieve. So dynamic document property or dynamic process property, let me give dynamic ddp underscore id. So don't be confused, that's why I am asking to understand the concept. Okay, so now we stored the property employee ids by using dynamic document. Now I want to retrieve those ids. So now tell me which property type I need to select, or which parameter type I need to select.
Document.
Document property.
Yes, someone is saying something. Document property, under document
Yes.
property choose, yes, click on dynamic
Dynamic
document
document
property.
property.
Now give the proper name. So now see what the id values, the employee id values we stored it by using ddp employee id, right? Now we want to retrieve those ids, right? whatever the IDs we stored, whatever the properties we stored, in this particular field, I mean in this particular property, now we want to retrieve them. We want to retrieve them. That's why I'm giving this name. You are getting my point? Guys, please
Yes, sir.
understand. If you're not, see, I will give you one example. So now what we are doing, so we stored employee ID. Okay, emp id we stored, okay, by using dynamic document property. Dynamic document property we are using to store this value. Okay, let's say here some 10 documents, 10 IDs are stored. Okay, already 10 IDs are stored. So now later I want to retrieve these 10 IDs. Okay, later I want to retrieve these 10 IDs. Okay, these IDs are coming from the profile, that profile element I given, and I stored this IDs, 10 IDs I stored. Okay, later stages I want to retrieve I want to retrieve these 10 IDs. So for example, I am using some ID field. Okay, so now I want to assign, I want to retrieve these 10 IDs which are stored in this. So now I can give this one only, right? DDP underscore employee ID. Yes or no? You are getting my point,
Yes.
everyone? So while retrieving,
Yes.
see, whatever the IDs we stored in this side. So now if you want to retrieve those IDs, we need to give parameter type as this property name. Yes, whenever we stored
Okay.
some values, so if you want to retrieve those values in later stage, but in the parameter session, in the parameter value, we need to give that property name. Okay, clear?
Okay. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so now, yes, now come here, and this is a ID we given, right? That we went to document property, and the document property, dynamic document property, and DDP we given. So now let me test it out. Let me do a testing. Guys, don't get confusion. Simple funda. If already we stored some values in the set properties, now if we want to retrieve those values, we need to give that whatever the ID, which whatever the naming convention we followed while storing, same give say naming convention, and the property we need to give in the parameter type. Okay, in the parameters session we need to give that particular property. Okay, now comes to set properties. Click on the set properties where we are retrieving. Click on that and check the logs. Check the logs. Now you can see here, executing document property shape, getting parameter position 1001. See, here we are getting parameter session 2 and getting parameter 3, 4, 5 and 6. See, each and every property we are able to retrieve, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Clear?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
and one more note point. Okay, one more note point. The set property shape will not alter your data. What does it mean? It is not going to be alter your data. So for example, let's say we are not storing anything. Okay, we are not storing anything, or we are not doing anything. Simply we are dragging the set property shape, and we are we are just connecting to this. Okay, let me no just no now tell me I'm not configuring anything. Okay, I'm not configuring anything, I'm not assigning any value, I'm not storing anything, I'm not retrieving anything by using set properties. So let me test it out. Can you tell me, it will throws an error or it will execute smoothly? Yeah, so I told you that if you are not getting any no data, if you are no there is no data, or we are not getting any data, then that particular shape will not get executed, right? So but it is not in the case of set property shape. Okay, it is not case in the set property shape. The set property shape will not alter your data. Okay, if you are not configuring anything, whatever the data which is coming from its previous shape, it will it will send the same data to its subsequent shapes. Okay, for example, here if we are getting some data, okay, here you can see we are getting some data, some 6 documents. Okay, and same 6 documents will come here. You can see here, Okay, now you can see just executing the shape. Okay, it is not doing anything, and is what are the documents it is receiving, same documents it will send to the its subsequent shapes. Now you can see here same data is sent to its subsequent shape, which means the set property shape will not alter your data. Okay, the set property shape will not alter your data. Clear? Yes.
Yes, Pawan.
Perfect. Okay, if it is clear, now we will discuss about dynamic process property. Dynamic process property. So we will call it as a DPP. DPP. So name it itself, it is saying that dynamic process property. So here it is a dynamic document property. Now it is a process property. Okay, so now focus here. It is a process level property. Process level property. Okay, where we can store the values, and we can retrieve the document last document value. Now focus here, now understand the difference between them. Okay, we can retrieve the last document value. Okay, and we can retrieve that value anywhere in the process, and we can retrieve the value anywhere anywhere in the process. Okay, let's say, for example, if you are storing any id value or any name field by using dynamic process property. Okay, by using dynamic process property, if you are storing any value, we can retrieve anywhere in the process. Anywhere in the process means if you want to retrieve here, you can retrieve. If you want to retrieve the value here, you can retrieve. And if you want to retrieve those values here, we can retrieve. And moreover, if you want to retrieve in a sub process also, I mean, okay, this is my main process, right? Later we can discuss about sub processes. What do you mean by sub process? How we can create sub process? We'll discuss. But keep it in mind that dynamic process property is a process level property. In a complete process, wherever you want to retrieve that particular ID value, I mean that particular property value, we can retrieve anywhere in the process. Okay, we can retrieve anywhere in the process. Okay, right? And let's and these values, okay, these values can be extended and persisted. Okay, persisted, what does it mean, extensions, and what do you mean by persisted? Later I will discuss. But keep it in mind, these values can be persisted and extended, but dynamic document properties cannot be, right? Deep ddp values cannot be, keep it in mind, dynamic document property values cannot be extended and persisted. Okay, but dynamic process property values can be extended and persisted. Okay, now, so I will tell you the difference between dynamic document property and dynamic. So for example, if you are getting 10 documents from the source, now you want to store, okay, the particular id. Okay, dynamic process property if you are using, and let we can store, see, we can store these 10 document values. Okay, these 10 document values, whenever if you are retrieving that particular id value, the last, okay, the 10th, okay, the 10th document value, okay, let's say from 1 2 3 like this. Okay, like this, if you are getting the values, okay, up to 10. Okay, now we are using dynamic process property, and you want to retrieve that values. Now whenever if you are retrieving this value, the last document value is going to be retrieved. This last document value is going to be overridden all these document values. Okay, so whenever if you are using dynamic process property, if you want to store id value or any property value, that whenever after storing the property value, whenever you are retrieving that property value, the last document value is going to be we can retrieve, and this last document value is going to be overridden the its previous document values. Okay, its previous document values, it is going to be overridden. So what exactly I'm trying to explain you is, now I will show you here. Okay, now I will show you here. Yes, so now let me take okay, now in this property only I will store. So now what I will do, so I will take a dynamic process property. See, we have a 5 types of properties: document property, dynamic document property, dynamic process property, MIME property, and a process property. Now come to dynamic process property, dpp underscore emp id. Again I'm giving same. Okay, emp id. No, so but now here I'm storing dynamic process property. Okay, dynamic process property here. Okay, now okay, sorry guys, right here. So we are using dynamic process property, right? So now tell me this dynamic process property id which is coming from. So now these values which are no, now we need to assign the values, right? For this particular property we need to assign the values. So now tell me from where we are getting those values, from where we are getting those values.
Process property.
Dynamic process property.
Again, again, again you are getting
Process
confusion.
property.
See, no, wait, see, so we are trying to set the values, right? We are trying to set the values, we are trying to store the values. Okay, these employee ids which are coming, these employees are coming from the profile. See here, the no, the values are coming from the profile. We are trying to we are trying to pull the data from the disk in the form of profile. That profile containing employees data. In that employees data we have a multiple records, each record having individual employee id, right? So now whatever the profile which is coming, we are trying to store the employee id from that particular profile, right? We are storing guys, we are not retrieving, we are trying to storing. Okay, we are trying to storing the dynamic process property value. Okay, now tell me which parameter we need to select.
Profile element.
Profile element.
Profile element. Okay, now profile element, right? Now you're getting right. So now tell me which profile, which profile that is.
XML. XML.
XML. And that we need to select that type XML, and we'll go to that. And now tell me what is the key element here. What is the key element now?
Employee.
Employee
Employee
ID.
ID.
D.
Don't be confused guys, be confident. Okay, so now see, now we are using dynamic process property to store the employee id. That value is coming from the profile. Now fine, so now we are storing that value, that's fine. Okay, let me save it. Now test it out. Yeah, now you understood, right? So here we are using dynamic process property which is just we are storing, okay, just we are storing that employee id, which whenever if you are storing that employee ids, the parameter value is very very important, from where the values are coming. Okay, what is the source to this employee id, from where they are coming, okay, that needs to be given here. Okay, so for example, okay, for example here, not a profile element you are getting, some other property values if you are getting, or if you want to store any current data, or if you want to use any date formats, then we can go with that. For example, now let's say I want to store, okay, some dynamic dpp, okay, date. I will give the date here. So if you want to store the date, now you can click on this and go to property values. Okay, here we have a different parameter values. Okay, now you have a date and time. Now click on any type of time and date. Here we can give the current date. Let's say, okay, see here it is storing the date value. Okay, right, save like this. Okay, now test it out. Okay, come to the set property shape. Okay, click on the set property shape. So now see here, now see here, getting the profile element position 1, and this employee 1001 is storing, that's fine. And the second okay, value say name is storing, that's fine. And now you can see here the date is storing, that's again. So see here, id which is stored by dynamic document property, and which this one is stored by, okay, I think you will get a confusion if I do like this. What I will do, I will take a new property, then I will show you. Okay, dynamic. Okay, which is coming from the profile element, right? Let me take that profile. Okay, so now let me test it. Okay, now come to this first set property shape. So now we are storing dynamic process property values. Okay, so now while storing the dynamic process property, we can store each and every id value. Okay, now you can see here, okay, we are storing 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, and 1006 by using dynamic process property. By using dynamic process property, we are able to store each and every id value. Now so so here also we are able to store each and every id value when we are using dynamic document property. When we are using dynamic document property, we can store each and every value, and when we are using dynamic process property also, we can able to store each and every value. Okay, now focus here, now focus here. So the difference I will tell you, here I will take a dynamic. Okay, let me give any value, dynamic document property. I'm giving some ddp, some imp, okay, imp id I will give. Okay, imp, let's say imp, so those that it will not getting. So now I want to retrieve the value which is stored in the which is stored in the dynamic process property. Okay, now I want to retrieve the value which is stored in the dynamic process property. Now tell me which parameter type I need to select.
Dynamic process property.
Process property.
Dynamic process property, very
Process
good.
property.
Now give the exact name, dpp employee id. Okay, now say okay. Okay, now we stored, now we are able to retrieve, right? Now say okay, save. Now understand the difference between them. Okay, so what I am trying to say here, whenever if you are using dynamic process property to store the values. After storing the values, okay, if you want to retrieve that values, the last, okay, if you are, for example, if you are getting 10 documents, okay, in 10 documents, the last document value is going to be retrieved. This last document value is overridden with this previous document values with these previous. So now practically I will show you. Okay, now come here. Now come here. Click on the first set property shape. Click on first set property shape. Here we are retrieving the values which is stored by the dynamic document property. Okay, now you can see here. Okay, 1001 we are retrieving 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, and 166. We are able to retrieve when we are storing by using dynamic document property. Dynamic document property. So now click come to the second set property shape. Okay, now as I mentioned, we can able to retrieve only the last document value. That last document value is going to overridden its previous, its previous documents. Let's say we have 6 documents: 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, and 006. Okay, 6 documents we have. These 6 documents, out of these 6 documents, the last document value, which is 1006, is going to be overridden its previous documents. Means 1001 is overridden with 1006, 1002 is going to be overridden with 1006, 1003 is going to be overridden with 1006, likewise. So now I will show you here. So now you can see here, only we can retrieve the last document value: 1006, 1006, 1006, 1006, and 166. Which means whenever if you are using dynamic process property to store the document values, okay, whenever if you are retrieving, we can retrieve the last document value. Okay, clear?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, sorry guys. Okay, now you can see here. So whenever if you are using dynamic process property, we can retrieve only the last document value. So now you can ask me, sir, where we can use the dynamic document property values and where we need to use the dynamic process property values. So whenever if you want to deal with in a document level, okay, whenever if you want to deal with a document level, then we can go with the dynamic document property. And whenever you want to deal with in a process level, for example, now, okay, in this particular IDs, okay, let's say I want to use, no, any particular ID. Let's say I want 006. I want to use in a later stages. Then in a no, in a later stage, then we'll go with the dynamic process property. Okay, I don't want to go with any specific no, ID or any specific name. Then we can go with the dynamic document property. Okay, but this will come with an experience. Okay, like whenever whenever you are working in a real time, or it depends on the practice, how no, frequently you are doing practice, then only you will get to understand this difference between dynamic document property and the dynamic process property, where exactly we need to use this particular property. Okay, with the help of no practice only it will come. Okay. Yeah. Clear?
Yes.
Anyone not understood, or
Okay,
anyone
okay.
having any issues while understanding this? Yes. Okay. If you don't have anything, now let me take process property. Process property. Okay. Process property. So process property is a component in Boomi. It is a component, guys. Okay. Process property is a component in Boomi. Okay. Which holds the
Pavan,
uh,
I have one question.
please.
And dynamic process property. As you said, we can override that employee IDs and whatever the values we can override, right?
We are not going to override
Uh,
that property
mm,
itself. It is overriding.
uh, okay, the property itself is overriding.
Hmm.
Can you please explain some real-time scenario, like exactly where we can use in the real-time
Yes,
project?
in coming days I will explain you when we'll discuss with the
Oh,
Salesforce and all the this no Salesforce uh,
uh,
right, with the real time example I will explain. Don't worry. Okay, I will explain.
okay,
I will explain you the dynamic document property where exactly we need to use, where dynamic process property where we are going to be used. I will explain you with the real time scenarios with an example when we are discussing the Salesforce. Okay.
okay. Exact, we have one difference, right? Through process property and dynamic document property.
Yes,
Only
there are.
one difference. Uh,
No. It's not a one difference. We have a lot of differences. See, so the
okay.
dynamic document property, it is a document level property. Okay. So we can
Okay.
retrieve only in a particular branch. Okay. Let's say,
Okay.
for example, if you are using dynamic, okay. Now I will give you one more example. Let's say I'm using dynamic document property here. Okay. What I will do, dynamic document property. Here I will store DDP underscore location. Okay, now
Okay.
same I will use DPP location. Okay, now understand. Okay, so now which is coming from the profile element.
Profile element.
Okay, location. Okay, same the DPP value also is coming from the profile location. Okay, so now I want to retrieve these two values. Okay, I want to retrieve these two values here. Okay. Here I want to retrieve these two values. One is which is coming from the document property choose
Hmm.
document property
Then document
the
property.
location, right?
Yes.
And the second one,
Dynamic process property.
process property DDP underscore location, right? Okay. Now
Yes.
okay, now understand. Save and test it. So before I saved, before I execute. So now, so as I mentioned, dynamic document property is a document level property. So now this value, if you are storing the before the branch, Okay, if you are storing the
Okay.
value before the branch, we can retrieve across all the branches. Okay, now this value, same value, if you are storing after the branch, okay, by using dynamic document property, we can retrieve only in this particular branch. Okay, only in this particular branch. Okay, only in this particular branch we are able to retrieve that value. Not, we are not able to retrieve this branch or in this branch. Which one? Dynamic document property. Dynamic document
Oh,
property is a document level property. If you are storing that value before the branch, we can retrieve across all the branches. We can retrieve across all the branches. If you are storing after the branch, we can retrieve only in a particular branch. Okay, not in the case of document dynamic process property. So it is a process level property. Anywhere in the process we can retrieve. Okay, anywhere in the process we can retrieve. Let's say here I am storing location value. Okay, location value here and here, right? By using dynamic properties, both the process property and document property. Now understand it. Here I want to retrieve those values after the branch. Okay, here in the first branch I am storing, in the third branch I want to retrieve. Okay, come directly jump into the notify shape, click on here. Okay, now you can see here the values are coming as null, which are stored
yes.
by that. Yes, so now come to, now you can see here the values are coming as null because we are storing dynamic document property values. Yes,
Yes.
so it is not able to retrieve, but we are able to retrieve that values, right? Let me check once again, go back.
Pawan, you have used the naming conventions on, like, in the
Yes,
notifier you have
again we
used
need
the
to follow.
DDP location.
Sorry.
In the notify shape you have used the DDP location for both. But for the process we need to
Yeah,
use
that is what.
DPP, right?
Yes, yes, that is what I'm thinking. Okay, that is what. So that is what I told you, that whenever if you want to retrieve, just paste it. Okay, copy that property value and paste it here. Okay, very good observation. Now we can see the uh, difference. Now, okay, come to the notify shape. Okay, open the logs. Now see here, first value is going to be empty and the second value is Chennai, and the first value is empty and third second value is Chennai. Likewise, you can see the last Chennai value is going to be overridden the values. Okay, now come
Mm.
here, click on this. So here we are getting 6. Okay, the last, go to the directly jump into the last, because I told you by using dynamic process property, the last value is going to be stored and that value is going to be loaded. So you can see here the last location is Chennai. So this Chennai only we are able to retrieve, but the no the dynamic document values, the dynamic document values coming as null, I mean empty,
That,
because we are not able to retrieve those values. Dynamic document values we can retrieve only in a particular branch. Okay, only in a particular branch we can able to retrieve those values. Which values? Dynamic document properties. But we can retrieve dynamic process property values anywhere in the process. Yes,
oh,
you can see Chennai is coming, but that property dynamic document value is null, empty is coming. Okay, and dynamic document property values cannot be extended and cannot be persisted. Already I told you that. Okay, cannot be persisted and cannot be extended. And but we can extend the dynamic process property values, and we can extend those values. Okay, clear?
clear, clear. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, if it is clear, then if you don't have anything, we can wind up the session here, and tomorrow we will continue the process property. And okay, I will give you some more examples. Okay, please try to understand the all the difference between dynamic document property and a dynamic process property. If you are not understanding, tomorrow we will discuss. Okay, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can wind up the session here. Yes, guys.